All right, so let's add another feature to this so that we can retrieve a particular course. So let's I'm going to almost the same mapping, but this will be request mapping with being able to retrieve for a particular course. So I'd like to be able to add here a course ID that can be parameterized, such as that I can return an individual course. So this will be find course by ID, and then here's the course ID. So ideally, this would use a course DAO. It's the same DAO. I guess I could declare it here as part of the instance of the service, but let's see. We could do something like return DAO.find course by ID, but of course that function doesn't exist. Right? We'll need to build it. Additionally, notice that this course ID, somehow we would like it to map and map to this parameter, this path parameter. And unfortunately, it doesn't map just because it's the same name. Right? Instead, we need to parse it and decorate this this parameter using a path variable and giving the name of the variable as course ID. Okay, so path variable, that needs to be imported, and I'll put this in its own line so that it can be read a little better. All right, so that should parse the course ID from this, and then notice that it's decorating the variable, right? So it's providing the value of that parameter, right, from having parsed it from the URL path. Make sense? Now these names don't have to match. They don't have to match. So actually, I will change it so that it's clear that they don't have to match. Right? They don't have to match. These have to match, right? Because this is referring to something on the path. Okay. All right. So let's implement find course by ID. So let's say we'll create that. There it is, the boilerplate. So this will be almost the same content. So I'm just gonna copy this. So this will be course, and then I'm going to return course. And in between, I'm going to just do almost the same content. The only big difference here is that it's going to use a different query. It's going to be, let's write the query. It'll be something like find course by ID, and this will be select star where ID equal question mark. Right? All right. So in the find course by ID, we're going to have to parameterize that, right? So this will be find course by ID, and we'll have to parameterize. We'll say statement dot set integer. The first integer, I'm going to set it to ID. Okay. What's this complaining about? Oh, string? No, it's an integer. Sorry. Did I write it wrong on the service? Okay, sorry. This is an integer. Integer. All right. Let's go back. There it is. So it's an integer. Loads it. While results. Here it is. Notice that I know it's only one, right? So I don't need it to be a while loop, right? So instead of a while loop, it's going to be an if, right? So if there is a result set, just read that one record, that one row. I don't really need to read the ID. I already have the ID. It's being passed in as an argument, and I already declared course, and it's being instantiated. And that's what I'm returning here. Okay, so let's try it out. Let's see. Let's restart the server. All right, so it's loaded. All right, so if I restart, there it is. So it's the same content as before, but now I can just parse and just return the first one. I return the second one. I can return individual ones. Okay? All right. So the next thing would be that we would like to be able maybe to create a course. All right, so that's a little trickier since from the browser we can't, as the RESTful convention is that if we want to create something, we need to generate a post. Okay, so from here we cannot generate a post. So we have a couple of solutions. One, we could use Postman, right, where we can generate a post, or we can use create a very tiny little application, web application. Yes. I'm sorry, say again? That's if it's a non-key query, like a filter, right? Maybe courses that have at least 20 seats, right? And so that would be a filter, right? And so that would be part of the query. But if you're doing primary keys, right, in the RESTful APIs, typically the pattern is entity, primary key, entity, primary key, entity, and that allows you to navigate the entire data set if you know the IDs, the primary keys, right? So that's what we're doing here, right? That's the convention if you're using RESTful APIs, right? If you want to filter, yeah. So for instance, if you have a field like seats, for instance, right, you would say course, right? So this returns all the courses. Maybe you don't want all the courses. You only want the courses where the semester equals whatever, right? Or where the seats, so min seats equal 22. So give me all the courses whose seat is at least 22. Okay, so this is applied on the entire data set, on the entire collection, but you're filtering, right? By a date, by some criteria, right? By a non-primary key criteria. But the primary key criteria are used as path parameters, right? Because this allows you to do things such as course 1, right? Then this is a particular course, and then keep navigating. Like, okay, give me that course. Now give me all the sections for that particular course, right? And then give me that particular section for that particular course. And so the convention is that you use primary keys here. Okay, all right, so that's a common. If you want to adhere to RESTful conventions, you don't have to, right? But it's a very common industry best practice, right? To use RESTful services. Many APIs out there that say are RESTful, they don't actually adhere to the RESTful. They're just using the branding REST, okay? But they don't actually adhere to the RESTful conventions. All right. Also because query parameters are syntactically easier to use. Okay. But nevertheless, again, if you're following a RESTful API, you would use this syntax, right? So entity name, API primary key, entity name, primary key, entity name, and so on and so forth. All right. All right. Okay. So right. So to be able to create a course, we would need to do a post. Right, if we want to use a RESTful API, right? If it's not a RESTful API, I could do things such as, and this is very common. A non-RESTful API would do something like, I don't know, API create, something like action equal create, entity equal course, and then name equal CS, 3200. Okay. Right? Now I don't need post. This would be a get. I can just use a plain old get, parse all the query parameters, and actually do a DAO that creates a new course. Yes? but then it would not be RESTful. Okay, if you want to use REST, the convention is that you need to generate a post. Okay, but we can't generate a post from just a plain old browser. We need to use things such as Postman, or we can create a tiny little JavaScript or jQuery or Angular application. So let's do that. Let's create a tiny little bit, a tiny Angular application that does that. All right, we'll do that next.